This podcast is sponsored by the Fireman Moving Company. The Fireman Moving Company is the official moving company of WKU Athletics. Not only can they be trusted to move all the coaches in and out of Western, but they can move you anywhere nationwide. The Fireman Moving Company is owned and operated by firemen and is founded by WKU alumni. If you are looking to move sometime soon, give them a call at 270-791-1755 and get yourself a free quote.
Welcome to Topper Talk, your number one Western Kentucky athletics podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Moffitt, and I'm joined by co-host Tyler Bailey. Hilltopper Nation, whether it's happening on the hill or on the road, grab those red towels, stand up and cheer, because it's up next on Topper Talk.
And welcome back, and thank you for downloading and listening to another episode of the Topper Talk podcast. We are your number one source for WKU sports news and information. We are the only year-round WKU podcast and the only WKU podcast that covers every sport and athlete at WKU. We are also a proud member of the College Huddle podcast community. Make sure you're following us on social media. I especially recommend our X or Twitter account, where you're going to get the daily live updates of news and information as it happens or comes across our timeline. And then feel free to head on over to our YouTube channel, get that update, subscribe over there every time we upload a video episode. Tyler, we've got another big episode, a nice victory recap to dive into, man. You ready to get into it?
Yeah, man, it's going to be nice to talk about this win, boy. Let's go.
But before we do that, we have to get caught up, as always, with our Red Towel wrap up, which catches us up with all the news and information we've missed since we last recorded. So, Tyler, hit us with that Red Towel wrap up.
So, starting off, WKU Lady Toppers basketball announced their full non-conference schedule.
Yeah, if you're watching the video version on YouTube, I have it conveniently pulled up on the middle of the screen there. Just like we did with the men's schedule when it came out a few weeks ago. We'll dive into this when it's a little closer to basketball season. But just glancing at it, pretty good schedule. Doesn't look as regionally based as the men's schedule. The men's schedule is really travel friendly. This one, a couple usual suspects on there: Lindsey Wilson, Kentucky State, and then some good home games on there: Wichita State, Indiana State, Vanderbilt, all in Diddle Arena. Going to Illinois, going to SIU, Florida Atlantic in Diddle Arena. So some good contest on there. Really looking forward to the women's schedule.
And WKU Soccer, they started off Conference USA play with a 2-1 victory over Kennesaw State.
Yeah, nice to start off conference play with a victory. Non-conference was a little bit of a mixed bag between some good showings, and then when we played some tougher opponents, it seemed like we had a hard time finding the net. But definitely nice to start off Conference USA with that 1-0 record now in Conference USA play.
Sydney Hackett was named Golfer of the Week after her second place finish at the Badger Invitational.
Yeah, this almost feels like old news now just because of the timing. It was announced last Monday or Tuesday, like the day after we recorded, as we published our last episode, basically. So it's kind of old news, but when she finished second place at the Badger Invitational, that wrapped up last Sunday, then it was announced like Monday or Tuesday that she was Golfer of the Week. So definitely earned that with a second place finish and a really good field at that Badger Invitational. So congratulations to Sydney.
And I'm not finished with Sydney yet, or we ain't. Lady Topper Golf finished 10th at the Mason Rudolph Classic, led by Sydney Hackett in 19th place.
Yeah, you can guarantee she's going to be at or near the top of that leaderboard. She actually started off slow in this tournament as were day by day, day one, day two, day three, updating the standings. She kind of started slow and climbed up the board as the tournament progressed. So definitely snuck inside the top 20. The team 10th place finish and another really good invitational. Just a lot of good teams there. As always, the full results can be found on WKUsports.com. Not going to dive into all 7, I think, golfers we had competing there, but just a really overall good team effort, led by Sydney Hackett, which really isn't a surprise at this point.
And they announced the musical guest that was going to be before the WKU football game versus FIU on 10/14, and it is going to be Blanco Brown, which a few years ago came out with the song "The Get Up," big old party song, but he also has some other good ones. I would invite you to go listen to.
Yeah, I had to ask you who this was when I saw the news come across the timeline earlier, showing my age, "Get off my lawn." I don't know who he is. He's not my cup of tea, not my genre of tea, I guess you could say. But I know that I really like the annual tradition that we have now with the pregame concerts from, Shaq to Flo Rida to there was another country guy a couple years ago. Um, yeah, it's going to bring a lot of students out. It's going to bring a lot of people out to South Lawn. I know the atmosphere is going to be awesome, whether I enjoy the music or not. I'm going to be there, just kind of soaking it all in. And I'm really glad we're continuing that pregame tradition for one of the games. It's one of the midweek games, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it is a midweek game, so um, it'll definitely help attendance and hopefully student attendance for that game. Hopefully, they show up for the concert and then make their way on inside of Houchin Smith Stadium for that FIU game.
Moving on, WKU volleyball defeated Bradley 3-0, Indiana 3-0, and Austin P 3-0.
Yeah, all three of those were part of the Alyssa Kavanaugh Classic. Yeah, all three of them were tough games. I mean, that Bradley team, I got to attend that game. That was a really tough game. This past Friday, it was 12:30 is when the match started. I think middle of the day game. Really well attended though. I was really shocked how many people were there for a Friday afternoon game. Got to pop in and watch that entire game. They were tough, but we pulled out that victory. It's amazing how many of our young players. I mean, at times we had six underclassmen on the court at the same time. I mean, we were playing some young players, and then Indiana, the second game Friday night, they came into that game undefeated. They were 8-0 before we handed them that 3-0 loss. So that's a really good victory over a team that probably will be playing in the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, we had an injury at the very end of that game. Kara Knox went down, has an ankle injury, will be out several weeks, but still was able to close out that tournament with a victory over Austin Peay. So just a really awesome weekend. But the injury bug just continues to bite our volleyball team.
Well, let's get in and talk about some of them players. Izzy Vanderwild named Defensive Player of the Week and Callie Bauer Sitter of the Week. Izzy and Kara Knox named to Alyssa Kavanaugh All Tournament Team.
Yeah, it was nice to see Izzy. You can kind of tell that she's kind of rounding back into form, coming off her ankle injury from several weeks ago. You could tell she's getting a little bit more explosive, a little bit more involved and on the floor. But then she also suffered an abdominal strain that Travis Hudson disclosed today. So I'm sure that'll also affect her going forward. So again, injury bug, hate it. But love to see her named a defensive player of the week, Callie Bauer, setter of the week. She's won that award multiple times. And then Kara Knox, she had 22 kills versus Indiana before her injury, basically lifted us to that victory. And Izzy as well being named to the all tournament team. That's just very well deserved on all their behalves.
And then to finish it up, WKU the volleyball team lost 0-3 to number three in the nation, Louisville.
Yeah, this match basically just went final, within the last 2 hours as we're recording Monday evening. It just went final. That was a really tough game. Got to listen to the Travis Hudson press conference this morning. He talked for I think it was about 16 minutes, and a lot of it was going to be about this match and just how we have fared in non-conference play so far. He talked about a lot. This team will, if we lose that game, which we did, obviously, we'd be 9-4 right now, ending non-conference play, and with the injuries that we have experienced and adversity we've gone through, he would take that 10 times out of 10. We've seen this team battle. A lot of young players stepping up and getting a lot of playing time. Um, and he knew that that was going to be a tough game. We had nothing to lose going to Louisville and playing up there at the Yum Center. We got to go compete and try our hearts, but that's the top 5 team in the nation, and we are nowhere near full strength at the moment to try to pull off that upset. but it was a good game. I'm sure it was a great environment. I didn't get to watch it because I had to go take in one of my daughter's volleyball games, but I'm sure it was a great time. But now we move on to conference play. We've got Jacksonville State coming up this coming weekend, so we'll be talking about that next episode. But just a good, solid end to non-conference play as a whole.
That it is, and that concludes this week's episode of the Red Tower Wrap Up. Moff, back to you.
Yep, good stuff as always. Soccer, golf, volleyball, just a lot of good stuff going on. But now we have to jump into the featured segment, which is our football game that we just had this past weekend, where we hosted a Mountain West opponent, Nevada, here at the Houch for a friends and family weekend in front of an announced attendance crowd of 17,247 people, which quite frankly, I thought that number was closer to 20,000 people. If you saw the stadium, you saw how the parking was, the tailgating was like, I don't know how it wasn't 20,000 people there, but 17,000 is what we reported. So that's what it was. But we were able to secure a 31-16 victory. The win moves WKU to 3-1 overall, with a road game at Missouri State coming up next on the schedule. The game against Nevada was a lot tighter than I think a lot of folks around the WKU fan universe anticipated, because mainly they were just looking at their paper resume. They were 3-10 last year, last in the Mountain West Conference. They were picked to be last in the Mountain West Conference this year. They were coming off a loss to MTSU last week, but they didn't look at how tough this Nevada team was defensively, and we saw that up close and personal in the first half. And this was a team that lost 6 one possession games last year. We talked about that in the preview episode of this game. That 3-10 team easily could have been a 7, 8, 9 win team if they just have some plays, some balls go the other way last year. So they were tough, man. It was a battle. Um, I'm glad we were able to pull away and get the victory. I think we said it in the off season. We said it previewing the schedule. We said it previewing the game. This was the type of game that we have to win. Under Tyson Helton, it was Toledo last year, and it should have been Toledo this year. That's the type of game we have to win to be considered a serious contender in the G5 if we want to elevate ourselves to a playoff contender at some point. We can't lose that Toledo game. We can't lose this Nevada type of game when we're in the non-conference schedule. And then we have to take care of business in Conference USA play. But we thought it would be a battle, and it turned out to be a battle that, thank goodness, we came out on top. But Tyler, what were your overall thoughts on this game and just how it played out in a tough game versus Nevada?
Well, the longer I thought about it, the more I thought that, and I watched after seeing the results of them playing MTSU and seeing how bad MTSU is. I thought we were going to put up a 50 piece. I said that for the score prediction. It didn't turn out that way. Uh, you're right. Nevada's defense was everything it was cracked up to be, but I mean, it was a tough win. I feel like if we played a complete game instead of kind of like the Jacqueline Hyde, first half looks really ugly, second half looks great, and we if we could just kept that momentum going from start to finish, I feel like we would have blown this team out of the water. But we didn't, and the coaches had to adapt to what the Nevada game plan was. But overall, it was a very tough game, and I'm glad to see us walk away with the dub.
Yeah, the game started out really slow. It was that defensive battle early on. Nevada opened the game with a 3-and-out punt. WKU got the ball and pretty much immediately went down the field, stalled out right before they got to the red zone, and then missed a field goal, which is obviously very uncommon for them. Usually pretty good on special teams. Then the teams traded field goals early. The second quarter was basically a punting contest. Both teams had a turnover. I think we had an interception early, and then they had an interception late. Nevada was able to score a touchdown to take a 10-3 halftime lead. Don't get me started on the PI call that basically dog walked them down to the goal line for Chubba Purdy to score that touchdown. Um, but then after halftime, WKU responded with an opening drive touchdown to tie the game. Nevada added a field goal, and then WKU took their first lead of the game in the fourth quarter on a direct snap to George Hart III. who was able to rush the ball into the corner of the end zone. We then forced another Nevada punt. The defense kind of bowed up there in the second half. Then Lavelle Wright scored his second touchdown of the game to make it 24-13. Nevada had the ball late, was trying to rally. They were down. I think they were down 11. They kicked a late field goal when they got close to the goal line to get within 8. Then they attempted an onside kick, which they would have had to recover, score a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion to try to force overtime. But on the onside kick, Matthew Henry returned that onside kick for a touchdown to get us to the final score of 31-16. And was probably one of the craziest spread covers you'll ever see. A lot of people got that spread at minus 8.5. It was 8 points at with just seconds left on the clock when they're trying that onside kick, and then Henry scoops and scores that basically to get us to that 15-point final margin of victory and just cover the spread for a lot of people. It was crazy. I know some Vegas people, and if you look at the comments under the final score was crazy spread cover. Just the degenerates were in the comments, loving it. But Tyler, what are your thoughts on the game and just how it played out? And like you said, it was kind of a tale of two halves. We didn't figure out in the first half that they were basically daring us to run the ball. We come out after halftime and okay, if you're going to dare us to run the ball, we'll run the ball, and we did it with a lot of success in the second half. Moved the ball, scored some points. Whereas we only had 3 points at halftime and able to pull away with 4 touchdowns in the second half and have what looks like a decisive victory, even though it was closer than what that final score looks like. It was a game I feel pretty comfortable about. Not patting myself on the back, but real close to my final score prediction. It was 34-17 was my guesstimation. That last second onside kick recovery obviously helped make that look really good. But it was a battle. It was a slugfest. It was a little bit more of a defensive grind than we're used to seeing. And we'll talk about that more with the stats. But just what are your overall thoughts before we jump into those team and player stats?
Well, it's good to see the team fight back because you're right. We did take that 10-3, trailing going into halftime. It was good to see the coaches make adjustments. The to get the O line to stop the rush and defense did really bow up there and played great. Kept Chuba Purdy pretty well, somewhat contained, but was able just to keep them pretty much off the board except for field goals. But I think the game played out pretty good. It was like I meant, it was tougher than what I thought it was going to be. I thought I thought we would win a lot. We wouldn't. I thought it'd be a better win for us. I'm not complaining about a 31-16 victory, but it is good after the Toledo game. I know the team had a week off, so it was good to see them come back with some grit and some fight and not wanting to give up.
Yeah, at the end of the day, a win's a win by 1 or by 100. It goes in the left-hand column. That's what I want to see, and that's all you're going to remember at the end of the year. Now, jumping into some player stats, our leading passer, of course, was Maverick McIver, starting quarterback. Not the most Maverick McIver game of his career, but still pretty decent. 22 out of 33 passing, 66% completion percentage, 216 yards. Again, not what you're used to seeing from him. No touchdown passes and 1 interception on what was honestly a really good play by the defender to drop back into coverage at the last second and just read him on a third down play and made a good play on the ball. Um, but not a lot of just passing stats there. And mainly that was because of what the defense was doing. They were only pressuring with their 4 down linemen, dropping everybody else into coverage. And like we said earlier, daring us to run the ball. So we really got away from the run or away from the pass early, went to a really run heavy second half. So most of that damage was in the first half. If you look at it that way, pretty good half of football, 216 yards. But we just decided to start taking what the defense was giving us in the second half and had a really good game rushing the ball. Our leading rusher was George Hart III. He had 11 carries for 63 yards. He had a 1 touchdown and a 5.7 yard per carry average. Then Lavelle Wright had 7 carries for 47 yards. He had 2 touchdowns on the ground and a 6.7 yard per carry average. Then Noah Myers was our leading wide receiver. he was really just chopping up that middle of the field. 6 receptions, 81 yards, didn't have a touchdown, but he was just, again, finding that soft spot in what the defense was giving us, and taking it. And he's a big boy, good hands, hard to take down. And then Jairus Mack had 4 receptions for 49 yards. Again, weird not seeing any wide receivers with a receiving touchdown, but the guys on the ground made up for that, and you love to see that. Tyler, did anyone else stand out for you offensively?
Oh yeah, Marvish Parrish he had 10 carries, 44 yards. You know, um, Jarius Mack, four receptions, 49 yards. Katie Hutchinson's 2 receptions, 18 yards, and in total 9 receivers caught the ball. Which, it's one thing Western does is Western does love to spread the ball. Justin Wolf, he's I think they view him more typically as a blocking tight end, but it was nice to see him get out there. He only had 1 reception for 3 yards, but at least he was still moving the ball. Moose Berry, 3 receptions, 12 yards. Cameron Flowers, 1 reception, 30 yards. I mean, altogether, this was a great offensive game, and it was absolutely great to see the run game be effective as it was. George Hart was a beast out there. So was Lavelle Wright. They both ran very angry and great power running. And kind of Marvish Paris kind of came around and was kind of the quicker back. But it was great to see the run game get evolved or involved in the offense as strong as it was.
Yeah, it was really, a tale of two halves. We weren't running the ball. We were trying to force the pass in the first half. Second half, we just opened up the run game. You're going to give us this, we're going to take it. And the yards per carry and the touchdowns on the ground kind of tell the story. That's what they were giving us. That's what they were daring us to do. Um, I don't know if that's the script that everyone's going to give us the rest of the year. I feel like that's the look that Toledo was giving us, and we never really pounded it home. And by the time we would have, we were kind of down so much it wouldn't have mattered. Um, but that was the game script. That was um, what Nevada tried to force us to do. So we took it and obviously turned it into a nice W. We'll see how that goes as we're now going to get into the meat and potatoes of Conference USA play with a couple tough road games, Missouri State and Delaware coming up, and then a bye week. Um, and then jumping in FIU, et cetera, MTSU, all those fun games. But looking at the defensive stats for the game, Anthony Brackenridge was our leading tackler. He had 11 total tackles. 9 of those were solo. 1 tackle for loss. It just seemed like he was everywhere on the field. And the commentators talked a lot about Helton kind of hinting at there was going to be a linebacker probably getting a lot more playing time just because of the style of play that Nevada brought to the field, being a more rush heavy team, a mobile quarterback type team. And Anthony definitely proved on the field that, man, maybe he should be out there full time, all the time. In our system, running a 4-2-5, um, you know, we're not out there with 3 linebackers much. And I think I saw a lot of good things with him on the field and having 3 linebackers out there. It really, honestly, it kind of held the run game in check a little bit more. They still had some success, don't get me wrong. But just the side to side, those, extended run plays that bounce outside really felt a lot more contained, in my opinion. And then another guy, Jalen Wester, had 8 total tackles. 3 of those are solo with 1 tackle for loss. Nazir Ward and Jalen Lewis both had interceptions. Unfortunately, Nazir Ward intercepted his and then fumbled it pretty soon thereafter before he got down on the ground. But that's okay. It still goes as an interception for him and a fumble lost, unfortunately. And then Jalen Lewis also had a fumble recovered earlier in the game. So, Tyler, what about defensively? Did anyone else stand out to you in this game?
Yeah, Dave Farrard, he had 6 total tackles, 3 solo. He had a half tackle for loss. Harper Holloman, he had 3 total tackles, 2 solo, 1 pass deflected. Miller Malone, he had two total tackles, 2 solo, but he also had 1 tackle for loss. And then you look down at Jakeem Fletcher. He only had 1 total tackle, but he was credited with a half tackle for loss. So it is good to see that, and the defense did intercept, like I said, Chubb with uh, every time I look at him, I think of Brock, but Chuba twice. So, and we held them to no passing TDs. So I think overall, I mean, defense defense played great this game.
Yeah, then looking at the special team guys, John Cannon was 1 out of 2 on field goals. Missed that one early in the game. Really, it was on the right hash, and he kicked it almost perfectly straight. Went just outside the upright. Didn't have the correct angle to get it to the middle. You're not going to make every kick on the season. That's nearly impossible. I want to say that was his first miss, if I recall correctly. So, 1 out of 2 on field goals. Cole Maynard had a Cole Maynard esque game. 4 punts on the game. 192 total yards. 48 yard per punt average. That's what he does. He's averaging, over 50 yards per punt for the season. Only one of 2 punters in the entire NCAA that are averaging 50 plus. And then Matt Henry with the onside kick touchdown return. That's a special teams play, man. You love to see that. Look like a scoop and score basically, and padded that spread. So love to see that. What about the special teams play for you, Tyler?
John Cannon made me a liar. We were driving back from Virginia, and a dude in the back seat asked me. He was like, because we were watching it, driver wasn't, I was, and guy behind me asked, is the kicker any good? And I was like, oh yeah, the dude's got range, and that was one that he missed, sadly, but he did make up for it. But Cole Maynard played great, and then watching Matt Henry get that in there. I mean, the only thing I could think of was da 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 da, and you know what that sound means. But special teams, I couldn't ask for anything more other than just hitting, being 100% on field goals.
So now we know it was the podcaster Jinx. Tyler Bailey talked him up, and then he missed a kick. It happens. You don't talk about a no hitter when a no hitter is happening. You don't do it. Let's jump into our keys to victory recap. We'll trade off as always, but your first key to victory was that we needed to be explosive both offensively and defensively in this game. Do you think we achieved it?
I do. Yes. Yes, it was kind of like tell two halves, like we both said. But at the end of the day, the we did end up putting some points on the boards, and the defense held up strong.
Yeah, my first key to victory was we had to win on first and second downs, keep them in third and long situations so Chuba couldn't just beat us with his legs. I think they were 5 out of 16 on third down, so less than 33%, closer to 30% conversions. I consider that a win. If they're not pushing 50% on third downs, they were pretty consistently in that third and medium to third and long situation. So I'll take that as a win. Your second key to victory was force them to throw. How about that key to victory? How did it play out?
Well, they did have 207 yards of rushing offense and only 165 yards passing, but Chuba is not a thrower at all. I feel like he's more comfortable running the ball. He completed 16 out of 30 passes, so I feel like we didn't really get up to that level of forcing them to throw, but they only scored one touchdown rushing. So
Yeah, I think we didn't jump out on them early enough. We started too slow to really force them to throw. You got to jump on somebody and be ahead of them quick to make them go abandon the run and start throwing the ball. But yeah, then my second key to victory was win the turnover battle. They had three, we had two, so we won the turnover battle. We'll take a +1. We'll take all we can get, but won the turnover battle, won the game. Love to see it. And then your last key to victory was be multifaceted and involve the run game. How do you think we did there?
I feel like we did great on that. We had 216 passing yards and 154 rushing yards. I mean, I could ask for a little bit more rushing, but I am excited to see that we did put up 154 yards or 145 yards rushing.
Yeah, I mean it and especially most of that was in the second half. If you really want to break it down, I mean that run game exploded in the second half. We took what they gave us, and that's it's nice to see that we can do that. If we need to do that going forward, probably gonna keep some defenses a little bit more honest. Then my third key to victory was win third downs. talked about it earlier. Nevada was 30% less than. We were closer to 50%. So we got them off the field on third downs, and we converted almost half of our third downs to keep drives going. Seems like we stalled before we got to the red zone several times, but I would consider that a win on the third down battles. Now looking at the key indicators for the game, um, in first downs, we were tied. Both teams had 22 first downs on the game. Third down conversions, Nevada was 5 out of 16. WKU was 5 out of 12. So that's a win for WKU. Total yards in the game, Nevada had 372 to only 361 for WKU. So Nevada had to lead there. Turnovers mentioned earlier, Nevada had 3, WKU only 2. So +1 for WKU there. Then penalties, Nevada has 6 penalties for 60 yards. WKU had 8 for 85 yards. And again, don't get me started on the 2 bullcrap PIs. One of them took away an interception and gave them a freaking touchdown, basically. Another one gave them a field goal. 10 of their points came on 2 just whatever PI calls, man. They just on replay, even the announcers were like, I don't know about that call. Um, but refs threw the flags that it is what it is. 8 penalties for 85 yards. I'm glad we were able to overcome that, even if I didn't agree with a couple of the penalties. And then time of possession, Nevada 32-22, WKU 27-44. That adds up to more than 60. I'm not really sure where ESPN got that from, but that's 4 seconds more than 60 total minutes. So I think we go to overtime and I missed it. I don't know. But just looking at the stats, I mean, that's a push game. If you're just looking at statistics wise, you're going, man, this was probably a pretty close game. Total yards near the same, first downs near the same, turnovers, penalties. This is going to be a game that you wouldn't think the score was 31-16. It was definitely a grind out victory for us. Closer than that final score looked like, obviously aided by the onside kick return for a touchdown by Matthew Henry. Love to see that. Da-na-na, da-na-na. Top 10 play for sure. Love to see it. But let's jump into some grades for this game. Tyler, what do you have for the offense versus Nevada?
I would like to give the offense an A, but it's just that first half that kept them out of it. I'm thinking B. I'm thinking a flat B. But I'd like to give them an A for the win, but it did take them a half of football to be able to get that up.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I'm on the lower end, like a B minus. I said we got to get to that 30-point number. That has to be where we're at to be winning ball games in Conference USA and against Nevada. Knew it was going to be kind of a tough grind out victory. Granted, 7 of those were special teams points, 3 points in the first half. Obviously, doesn't look great, but glad we turned it around and figured it out in the second half. Well, I'm gonna give the boys a B minus overall. I love to see that we pivoted and went run heavy in the second half. If that's what they're giving us, let's take it. Love to see that. What about your grade for the defense?
Holding them 10 points in the first half and 6 points in the second half, I couldn't ask for really anything more. If you only hold team 16 points, that's almost guaranteeing you a win. So I give the defense an A minus on that. I would like to see them, maybe make some better stands, not commit the penalties. I'm not saying it happened, but don't even put the option in the ref's hand. Just try to play clean and win. But I think defense played great, and I'm going to give them an A minus.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Defense gets an A for me. Again, third time. Don't get me started on the penalties. 10 of their points came off of some yellow hankies on the field. So 16 points, like you said, that's a really good number against any team that's going to win some ball games. Love to see that our defense kind of stretched their legs, bowed up in the second half. Still gave up some yards, but bend don't break. Didn't allow many points. So love to see that. Defense definitely gets an A for me. What about your grade for special teams?
Special teams, I'm gonna give them an A. With Matthew Henry, he had a 48-yard kickoff return. which ended in the touchdown. Then you had George Hart. He had one return for 33 yards. Total that's 81 yards. Great. John Cannon. Everyone's able to miss one or two. Uh, but I mean, he was 1 and 2, long of 40, 4 for 4 for extra points. And then Cole Maynard. I mean, just doing Cole Maynard things. Long of 52. I'm gonna give them an A plus on that.
Yeah, special teams is an A. I mean, those guys didn't make any glaring errors, and that's kind of what I'm looking for on special teams. Missing a field goal is not the end of the world. It's going to happen. I mean, I don't know what the NCAA average is on converting field goals, but it's not 100%. Misses are going to happen. Granted, the one we missed was a pretty close, easy, should have been chip in, gimme, I want to say, but it's not like he just shanked it wide right, wide left. He literally just kicked it perfectly straight. We just weren't centered on the field. But overall, man, it's hard to argue with the punting, the kick returns that we had, a touchdown that we had. Special teams gets an A for me. What about your grade for coaching versus Nevada?
Coaching, I feel like if this was last year, they would never have changed the game plan. But this year, the coaches went in there at halftime. They saw that, we were down 7, and they saw what wasn't working, and just decided to flip the script and to make it work for us. So, I'm gonna give the coaches an A in this one. I think the coaches did good. Then the game plan that came out after halftime obviously led to us settling down, getting the right players where they need to be, and for us to win the game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think the coaches did a fabulous job. I dislike the slow start to the game. It seems to be a trend at this point. All 4 games we started really slow, as far as coming out and scoring points or being consistent offensively. I would like to see that improve. But just overall, the defensive scheme, I think, really improved. Tackling was better. Still at times could have been better, but overall was better. And then obviously on the offensive side, pivoting and taking that running game. Hard to be mad at that. Even the message board haters were like, "Oh man, the offensive line woke up. Oh man, we can rush the ball." The females calmed down and backed off the ledge a little bit, and appreciated that sometimes the coaches are going to go in and make adjustments, and that's what we did, and
Hmm.
won this ball game pretty convincingly. What about your overall grade for this 31-16 victory?
I don't see how it could be anything other than an A for me. I had a B, A minus, A plus, and A. So all those average out to bat an A. So I think it was a great game. You're right. The slow start um, it does get old. I do wish the team would start faster, be more aggressive earlier on. But I guess coaches wanted to fill out the other team's defense. But I think it played out great.
I'm gonna go with a B plus 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 for my overall grade. Not quite an A, and a lot of that is just the slow offensive start. I want to see just a little bit more offensively. I love that we broke 30 points, but I still think there's some meat on the bone that we're just not quite getting all of it, and being as efficient as we can be. But I think we still obviously have plenty of games. We have 8 more games on the schedule guaranteed. Plenty of games to continue to improve and get better. Kind of wash that Toledo disaster out of our minds. Got a little bit better with Nevada, Missouri State, and Delaware coming up on the road. We have to be better than we've been the last couple games, or we're going to get upset one or both of those games. We have to be a better, more complete, more well-rounded team, so we don't get embarrassed by one of the newcomers to Conference USA. Tyler, who have you got, or would you select for your player of the game versus Nevada?
I'm gonna go with this is tough. I'm gonna go George Hart, GH3. 11 carries, 63 yards, 1 touchdown, long of 16. I mean, whenever the team needed him to run the ball and rush the ball and get them extra yards, he did, man. So GH3, you're my topper of the game, man.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. We don't share notes, but I texted his dad in the middle of the game. I said, "Man, George is having a heck of a game. He's doing everything, direct snap touchdown, running hard, had that good kickoff return. He was just doing everything, and I think he kind of proved that maybe he should be getting a little bit more carries in most ball games. I think Lavelle Wright did that too. I think both of those running backs proved that, man, they can take on more of a load than what they've been given. I'm not saying take carries away from Marvis Parrish, but he almost, in my opinion, could be a slot receiver type guy with just how dangerous he is out of the backfield and such good hands and the speed he has once he gets the ball in his hands. I think I love to see the versatility and the workload that these guys got and handled in this game, and how hopefully it translates going forward. But man, George Hart um, did a little bit of everything, did everything correctly, and was running his butt off. So he's my player of the game as well. Um, that does finish our recap for this victory, moves us on to 3-1 on the season. We'll obviously be previewing Missouri State and that trip to Springfield, Missouri over the next couple of days and have that uploaded. It's a game that is going to be tough. A lot of WKU ties and connections there, from everything from their athletic director being a former baseball player and son of Gary Ransdale, to their head coach Ryan Beard is a Bowling Green High School alum, has 2 degrees from Western Kentucky, played football at Western Kentucky, coached here at Western Kentucky on staff. Ace Wells is on staff, Max Halpin's on staff. There's just all kinds of connections between Missouri State and WKU, and there has been for years. I mean, Bobby Petrino was there for years. Nick Petrino's still there now. Um, it's one of those fun games that's a lot of the talking points for the media and the fans leading up to the game. But obviously, it's going to be all about the players and how tough the game is going to be. They won their first ever FBS game against a familiar foe in Marshall at Marshall just a couple weeks ago. Won them another ball game this past weekend at home, and they're going to be comfortable at home. They've been winning some ball games, and it should be a pretty decent crowd. I think they have I think it's 18,000 seat stadium. Hopefully the weather's nice. Hopefully a lot of Hilltoppers get to make that trip. It is a pretty deep. I think it's a 6 or 7 hour trip here from Bowling Green, a little farther than I expected, but should be a fun one. I know Missouri State's looking at that game as a measuring stick for kind of where they are in the pecking order with their transition, and how they stack up to us. Listening to their press conference today with Coach Beard, he recognized us as one of the perennial, top programs in Conference USA, and I think that's fair to say, with what Tyson Helton has done over the last 7 years, and even more, what we've done over the last 10 plus years, going back to 2014. Um, should be a good game. It's going to be a game that hopefully we build upon what we did this last game and what we've done all season and take a step forward. Hopefully the passing offense comes back around and is a little bit more viable with that threat of a run game being there and being displayed this past game. But really looking forward to it. Should be a fun game to preview. They're a team with a 7th-year quarterback, just like we have a 7th-year quarterback in Maverick. They've got Jacob Clark, class of 2019, old man, dang near on Social Security in the backfield. But, again, just another talking point. Going to be a heck of a ball game. It's a game on the road, so it's going to be tough. We opened as a 6.5-point favorite. Obviously, we'll talk about that when it gets a little closer, kind of what that's closing at. But Vegas thinks we're going to win, but it's going to be a tight one. So we'll see, Tyler. Hit us with your final words and then take us on out of here.
Well, if you mention that betting spread, whenever we do the preview, I have a historical fact that I will mention to you, or at least it just seemed like a pattern that keeps going. So, yes, this was a great win, but it's in the past. Time to look forward to conference play. I think the Missouri State game is going to be a good one. I hope people can make the trip. Hope people can watch it on TV, cheer on the Tops to another victory. Hopefully, we at least put up a lot of points on, and it is kind of awesome that that they have a lot of WKU connections or Bowling Green connections to us. So I think that just makes this a little bit more special. But nonetheless, I hope we I hope we just shove them into the dirt and just walk out there with a nice, easy victory. So with that, I will say, Moff, who has a better than us, man?
Nobody, buddy. You know it.
Go Tops, y'all.
Go Tops. Later, guys.
See you.